Go you dragons, march on down the field, full of fight and ready, our great team will never yield. Fight, 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 go you dragons. In the past, what we've done is shared moments that you remember, but I think we've probably heard all the stories we can about Claire Bell Spade, Matilda Steinhoff, Buck Springer, Luke Noacker, that's Stewie's favorite teacher. So I think we've heard all those stories, unless there's one unique one yet that you haven't shared with us. You'd like to do that at this time?
Well, I've never heard him, so. I said I've never heard him.
Oh, you've never? Well, there's some interesting stories. One, I'll just go so we know how we get into with names, right? Claire Bell Spade was called, and you know, this is kind of crude, but I hope, Claire Bell, you'll understand, okay? We referred to her as Spitting Spade. Miss Spade had a problem spitting while she spoke, and she literally spewed out saliva, right? I'll never forget, in my English class, junior high school, and by the way, Claire Bell Spade was an excellent school teacher, English teacher. She was a graduate, I think, of Princeton, or one of the big schools. She was a bright lady, a wonderful woman. But on this one occasion, she apparently liked, and I can understand, she apparently liked Bob Harrington a lot. Bob, remember, was a pretty nice looking guy, right? Well, in those days, if you can recall, the paper that we wrote on was yellow paper with green, maybe green lines or blue lines, right? And it was more like cloth than paper. Anyhow, on this one occasion, she was leaning down over, she never leaned down over anybody else, but for some reason she was right down here talking to Bob like this and so forth. But all of a sudden, hit this paper and it goes like this, right? So it just spread all across his entire paper because her saliva just soaked up in that thing. Beverly has a story about coming into homeroom where she had Miss Spade, and Miss Spade had two dresses. I think one was green and one was a kind of an off purple color or whatever. And on this one occasion, Miss Spade, her bra strap or slip strap had slipped below her dress arm. Her dress was hanging loose. Beverly very discreetly went to her and said something like, "Miss Spade, your strap is showing." "Oh, okay, honey." All right, enough of this frivolity. Let's get into something serious, okay?
Do we have to?
Yes.
As often we're thinking of memories, just briefly here, in this morning's Observer, there was a full page about people saving fat during the Second World War. And I just wonder how many of these younger people understand what our generation went through in the Second World War, taking the cans and taking both tops off for the stamping. Yes, so, you know, saving the fats to make ammunition for the soldiers and so forth. And I'm sure people have other memories. You know, you couldn't buy tires.
Yep.
You had ration stamps for sugar, butter, meat,
Yes.
any food. And I mean, there's so many things. It brought back a lot of memories to me this morning.
Yes.
Weekly school banking.
Yes. Oh, school banking, yeah.
Yeah, weekly, you take your dimes until you got enough to make an 1875 and buy a bond.
Right, yeah.
You can buy bond then or
Yeah,
something.
and they had the savings too.
Yeah.
Stamp bonds and regular savings bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something else we did, we collected newspapers and took them to the junkyard to sell them. And in my home, I had my husband's old wagon with the wooden sides, and he had printed on there, "Paper for sale." Here he was collecting it from the neighbors and, for during the war years. Yeah. Yep.
Well, this is interesting. You talk about something being ironic. I sat for 2 weeks trying to figure out what I wanted to say. and you've all said it just now, because what I have here is so much to what you've already said. But since I'm getting paid the big bucks, I'm going to share it with you anyhow, whether you want it or not.
That study goes.
All right, let me, I'm going to read it so I don't fall up here. I'm sorry,
You said
Bernie.
we didn't want to let all your studying go to waste.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Big bucks.
So I'm going to start here. Anybody else have any before I get going?
I
We
just
could have
have
had-
a question.
Sure.
So when I was young, I used to collect baseball cards, and I always wondered what it would have been like to live in the early 50s and to have bought a rookie Mickey Mantle card from 1952. And I realize I'm sitting with people that would have been in that time zone. Did any of you collect baseball cards in your younger days?
I had about 3 boxfuls of cards. Having 3 boys, every time I went out, I bought gum and got cards. Well, when my daughter came along, being the 4th child, she used to sit in the cellar and build churches, houses.
I'm going to start. Where did it all begin for us as graduates of Warren High? So let's go back to old Warren High, June of 1953. We gathered together in the auditorium and received our caps and gowns, 268 of them, I've been told. A day or two later, we walked across the platform at the Presbyterian Church to receive our diplomas. How happy we were, and a little sad, I would presume, but we had made it. We had gone through 12 years of Warren public education. But we knew at that time that our lives would change. How much of a change, we hadn't a clue. Some of us stayed at home and went to work at plants and factories and other businesses that we had at that time in Warren. And you remember how many factories and plants and stores and so forth we had. Some of us went off to college, others joined the military to see the world. But whatever we did, or wherever we went, Warren would always be a part of who we were and who we are today. We saw it all, or at least most of it. We came into this world in the middle of the 1930s. And we were witnesses to the Great Depression, World War II, and countless wars thereafter. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. But if we concentrate too much on those events, we can become very, very depressed. But we also witnessed the birth and growth of the radio, television, and in fact on television, we watched a person step off of a landing thing onto the moon and repeated the words, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." We learned something about smartphones. And I wrote a little sidelight here on smartphones. I said, that might be a misnomer, whether they're smart or not.
Smarter than me.
That's smart to me.
Yeah. And I asked, and then how is it working out for you on using the smartphone? It was supposed to make life easier and simpler. Time will tell whether that's true. We got to know something called Google, YouTube, Facebook, and we can almost locate anything if we use our apps. I'm still not sure what the word apps means. When I was a kid, it meant application. Is that what it really means? Applicate? Are we applying? I don't even know. How many know what that means?
I thought it was that.
Application? All right, well, okay, then we learned it from Bernie, from way out in Cincinnati. Yes, come tell us what application is. We elected a president who happened to be a Catholic, breaking down a barrier that had been in years for all our lives. We became even more inclusive when we elected a black man. So much occurred during our lifetime, but there are too many to mention today. Today, here we are at this place, celebrating our 70th class reunion. If my numbers are correct, it will be our 15th time that many of us have met to celebrate and to share memories. Some of you here today probably have been to all 15. Anybody been to all of them? All 15? Okay.
I don't know.
Many of you have been on the committee from the very start. How many persons have been on the very first committee all the way through? Nancy and Patty, probably? Arlene? Yeah. Stand.
Arlene,
Stand,
yeah.
stand, please. Yeah, stand.
Yeah, Arlene said.
Patty? Stand, Patty. Stand, Patty, before I get angry.
Well, this committee too, so we're going to recognize this committee now, right, Dawn?
Okay,
The committee that we all worked together was very special to me. And I love you all. I'm so thankful that you came, and God bless you all. And a safe trip home, and thanks to all you young folks. And brought your mom and dad here. You know, that's a very special thing that you do. And coming maybe and thinking, oh, I'm going to go there and be bored. Well, I don't think you will be. But anyhow, we've got a, no, Chris said no. That's Stewie's son back there. So anyhow. And yeah, and now Bernie Hart, we're going to read a letter from Chuck and Lois. Lois Red Spinner Johnson. So go to it, Bernie. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon, Beverly School. And I have a letter here, and it's titled Comments to the Class of 53 on the 70th anniversary. Lois and I send your greetings to you folks commemorating the anniversary of our Warren High School graduation. We'd have liked to be with you in person, but while our spirits are willing, our flesh is weak, so we don't travel very far from our home in Southern Virginia anymore. Someone was talking about the good old days, and an old friend where we now live said, what was good about the good old days? They're gone. Well, if he'd known what we were going to live this long, we would probably taken better care of ourselves. I guess by now, most of you know that old age is not for sissies. We're in high school, when we were in high school, in some ways I think things were easier for us than they are for students today. Right and wrong seem to be more well defined. I think we learn more about self-discipline and the fact that our actions have consequences, not only for ourselves but for others. That we are a part of a society that we are a part of a society and have responsibilities, not just benefits from society. Now for the fun part. Remember high school assemblies we had, and some of them were put on by our classmates. And the challenge to the students putting on the assembly was to get as much as possible approved by the faculty advisor. I remember one assembly when one of our female classmates ran across the stage in a swimsuit. Being chased by a male student pushing a lawnmower. Also, at one point in the assembly, one of our male classmates walked across the stage in a barrel. and appeared to be have no clothes on, as we saw his bare legs and shoulders. Now, as the assembly was concluding, the student in the barrel walked across the station again. In the barrel with him was the gal in the swimsuit. Anybody who knew this gal and fellow? Come to me later so we don't broadcast it to the world. I'll tell you who it was. At graduation, the girls wore white robes and caps. The fellows wore blue robes and blue caps. The boys were to wear a white dress shirt and a necktie. One of the boys showed up without wearing a dress shirt and no tie. When we marched in for the ceremony, it appeared he had on a white dress shirt and a tie. Who was this fellow? How did he do it? It was Howie Pratt, a good artist. He went to the art room, made out of paper what appeared to be a white shirt and a tie, and stuck it in his robe. And do you recall the third floor of the high school building being condemned as was unsafe and students were not permitted there? How many of you went up there to see what it looked like?
Did you really?
Someone has said it's a horrible death to be talked to death. So this concludes my remarks. The next time you're in Southfield, Virginia, please stop by and see us. Love from Lois and Chuck.
Then I said, for me personally, as far as the reunions were concerned, one that I personally thought was the most wonderful. I was sharing that with Karen Kinney, who had to leave, by the way, earlier. It was one of, and we probably did this more than once, but only one stands out in my mind, is when we recognized our classmates who passed before us. And I remember one breakfast at, I think the Holiday Inn, maybe, or maybe it was the business meeting over on, you know,
No,
Market
it's
Street.
at the Holiday Inn,
Okay,
their brunch.
okay.
On that
We
side.
had a brunch, and Karen, I remember, played her cello or violin or whatever she tried to. And I think Nancy Cannon read names of the persons who had died, and then someone had been designated to bring up a flower, remember, and place it down in place of the person who had died.
But he does that.
And I thought that was such a wonderful tribute to those people who we knew for so many years, and some of whom left us much too soon. And which recalls a song, remember, I think it was the Beatles. The Beatles wrote a song called Much Too Soon, where they talked about people who died early. And Franny Spatafor sang that to us one night at one of our reunions. I thought that was a very memorable time. I'll close now, and you may wish to share a memory of something that you remember in your youth or even now. But let me reflect on my own personal involvement. In 1949, I came to Beatty School because I had come from Urbandale. Many of you went right into Beatty, if you recall. If you were a student in the elementary schools in the town, you went right over to Beatty in the 7th grade. If you were a hick like me from Urbandale or Clarendon or wherever, we never came there until the 9th grade. So I arrived at Beatty School in the 9th grade and ended up in the chip on your shoulder teacher. Will you share that, Doug? Who was that? Who was the?
Who was it?
You have it there.
No. I'm saying, who
You learn when you're older, the chip on your shoulder, what you hear. There are others too upset. Will frequently shame you and often defame you and cause you much shame and regret. When time, life's advisor, has made you much wiser, you won't be so quick with a blow. You won't be so willing to fight for a shilling and make a good friend into a foe. That's the abbreviated.
To the water and son-in-law who are not familiar, okay?
We heard that.
And Mr. Hedrick, if you recall, in the 9th grade, we had two history teachers, Mr. Hedrick, Doug's father, and Harrison, Mr. Harrison, Carl Harrison.
I had Harrison.
Okay, and so I end up coming from Urbandale School, and I end up in Mr. Hedrick's class. I am also in general music class. Carol Fowler says to me, Donald Smith, I hear. He said, are you Dick Smith's brother? I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, you're not supposed to be in general music, you're supposed to be in choral music. I said, no, sir, I'm not going any choral. Yes, you are. Well, he switched me around. I ended up going from Mr. Hedrick's class into Mr. Harrison's class. And I got to sit behind this cute chick brunette who immediately swung around and started flirting with me. And she's been flirting with me ever since. Well, this is how it really began. When strolling through the halls of Beatty Junior High, A cute little girl caught my eye. I quickly doffed my hat. She said, "How gentlemanly is that?" In a moment my poor heart was stole away. A smile was all she gave to me. Of course I was happy as can be. I knew in a moment it must be fate. So I quickly asked her for a date. She smiled and said, "No. Your timing is very slow. But get in line, and if you're lucky, someday you may be mine." So many years, in fact 67 of them have quickly gone by. That cute little girl surely did catch my eye, especially when she said, "Hi." I thought I'd die. Each day I thank that day at Beatty Junior High. 5 years ago we thought that would be the last. Beverly already shared that. But here we are again. The group gets smaller and smaller with the passing of time. But I have a sneaking suspicion we'll be here again in 28. Wow. Wouldn't that be remarkable? You never know. Don't count us out. Not the class of 1953. I was dancing to my darling to the Tennessee waltz. Come on, sing. When an old friend I happened to see, I introduced her to my loved one, and while they were dancing, my friend stole my sweetheart from me. Okay? Next song. I'm dreaming of... This is for you, Jack. Only for you. White Christmas, all right? I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear the sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, 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 don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come